Murder increased by 0.6%, while attempted murder is up by 6.5%. Residential burglaries and hijackings are all up, with a dramatic spike in drug-related crime.
We need to be particularly concerned about the increase in murder. This is the first time in more than 8 years that we've seen an increase in the murder rate in South Africa.
Police say crime would have been significantly lower if it went for violent public protests. There were over 12,000 protests. Close to 2,000 were violent.
If there are protests in a particular area, normal policing and police who are doing other work have to be diverted to that. And that has, to a certain degree, created some loopholes.
Contact crime, sexual offences, bank robberies, ATM bombings and cash-in-transit heists have come down. Police attribute successes to strategic partnerships with stakeholders, for instance, between the police and banking sector.
Policing partnerships are very critical here, and the partners also not shying to come forward to also contribute in terms of managing their own risks. That takes us a long way.
According to data collected at 1,132 police stations, over 800,000 serious crime arrests were made. Today, another call for more frequent stats.
We believe that if the crime stats are released on a more regular basis, it will be updated, it will be relevant crime stats, and everybody will be able to judge how safe or unsafe we are.
The police plan to sign a memorandum of understanding with Stats SA to emphasize the credibility of their crime stats. Analysts say this will reduce their workload. Offenses Timo, SABC, Pretoria.
And we now cross to our Pretoria studios, where Dr. Johan Burger, senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies, is standing by. A very good evening to you, and thank you for joining us on the program. You've had some time to look through the stats and digest the figures. What do you make of the crime stats?
Well, you know, it's a mixed bag. The overall picture is that, and this is certainly how the police presented these stats, that these stats show that crime is coming down. I think the problem with this presentation from the police is that it tried to focus all the attention on the crimes that are coming down, and these are mostly less serious crimes and property-related crimes. The big concern, I think, that we have is that those crimes that threaten us most in terms of our personal security are the crimes that are going up. And the problem with that is also that some of these crimes were coming down in the last number of years, and we have to be concerned that they are going up again. Also, just considering the fact that in last year's figures already, there were early indications that these crimes might be going up again because they were either stabilizing or showing early signs of increasing. And this is now confirmed by this year's figures. And the problem also, I think, is that these are precisely the types of crime over which the police have much, much more control than those interpersonal crimes which they, as a social basis, and over which the police have less control.
Do you think that we are actually winning the fight against crime? You've illustrated a mixed bag. Should law enforcement perhaps be in crisis mode when it comes to fighting crime?
Well, you know, this is, I think, a very, very complex issue. There are many of these crimes that are not a purely police function. You know, even though we refer to the police's responsibility in terms of the overall crime situation, interpersonal crimes such as murder, attempted murder, rape and assault are caused by conditions that falls completely outside of the police's control, and there they have to work with other government departments such as social development, local authorities and so on to deal with these crimes. And I think we don't see enough of that sort of joint responsibility and cooperation. But if we look at the various types of aggravated robbery, such as house robbery, carjacking, street robbery and so on, those are the crimes where the police have a much bigger impact potentially. And those are the crimes that are going up. So it tells us then that there are failures in terms of policing. These are indeed the areas that I think the police should address. They should explain to us why it is that they have been unable to effectively bring down the crimes where they should have the ability to make a much bigger impact.
Dr. Burger, why is it, do you think, that they've been unable to do that?
Well, you know, I think the police service currently is facing a number of crises. We've seen the instability in terms of the leadership of the police service, and I'm not being personal. Just thinking back when Jackie Selebe was forced to go on extended leave, there was a replacement, an acting national commissioner. Then there was Becky Cele. Then he was also forced to vacate that position. There was another acting national commissioner, and then he was subsequently replaced by the current national commissioner. So there's that kind of instability. Then also, if you look at other positions in the top management of the police service, we've seen the problems that we experience currently with crime intelligence, where General Richard Ndluli is on suspension, as well as some of his senior officers. And this just led to a complete dysfunction at crime intelligence, which again I think negatively affects the ability of the police to identify and infiltrate some of the crime syndicates that are responsible for some of these aggravated robbery types. So, you know, we can go on. There's high levels of corruption. There are a number of criminal cases against police officers being investigated. So, in general, I think the police are currently facing so many internal problems that they find it very, very difficult to focus all their attention on their primary responsibilities in terms of safety and security.
Are the crime stats a true reflection of what's happening in the country? There's been past criticisms where people have said that the crime stats are not released often enough, that people don't really know what's happening in their own neighborhoods. What's your take on that?
Well, you know, there are actually two issues here. The one is the credibility of the police's crime stats, and I think until now we've been relatively satisfied with the police's crime stats. I mean, here and there were indications of manipulation at station level. We don't think that was big enough to make a meaningful impact on the overall crime figures. We are in the process currently of analyzing the stats that were released this morning to make certain that they are indeed credible as well. We will hopefully soon make a statement in this regard. Then there's the second issue, and that is the frequency of the release of these crime reports. And here we are on record. The Institute has often called for a more regular release of these crime stats because it's completely unacceptable. Until yesterday, the crime stats were 18 months old, a year and a half. So it's completely irrelevant then, and also it doesn't tell us what our situation is at the moment. The same goes to a large extent for the crime stats released this morning. It covers a period until March this year, so it's already 6 months old. The crime situation and the threats that you and I face at this moment may already be different from the picture that this crime report of this morning has painted. So, I mean, it's you know, some may debate this issue, but I think the evidence is overwhelming also from international experience that we have a right to those stats. We have a right to see them on a more regular basis, and I think the police have the capacity to do that, and I can see no reason why they find it so difficult to make this available to us on a more regular basis.
Thank you very much for your insight and time. That was Dr. Johan Burger, Senior Researcher at the Institute for Security Studies.